Starting again. Welcome everyone. I am Executive Director of Boehringer Ingelheim Venture Fund. I do all digital health investing in North America for our fund. We are a $300 million fund. Boehringer Ingelheim is a German pharmaceutical company, and we invest both in therapeutics and digital health. And I am going to go down the line and have everyone introduce themselves. Please say your name and a little bit about your company, and we'll go from there.
Hi everyone, I'm Wei Wu from Illumina Ventures. Illumina Ventures is an independently managed VC fund with genomics-enabled precision medicine as our investment thesis. So under this umbrella theme, we invest in 4 categories. The first one is life science tool, second is platform therapeutics, the third is clinical diagnostics, and the fourth one are various applications of synthetic biology in food agriculture, microbiome, consumer health, and even energy industrial application. And we are mostly Series A investor, 80% Series A, and then we do some seed investment and a B, C, or pre-IPO.
Hi everyone, my name is Edward Dimhouse. I'm with M Ventures. M Ventures is the corporate venture capital arm of Merck KGaA, that's the German Merck. We invest from a 500 million balance sheet fund, and I'm responsible with my team for a 100 million facility in that fund that is aimed at healthcare technology and deep tech. We invest globally. Series A, typical 3 to 5 million for the initial check size. We like to lead deals, and for us the thesis is really around computation plus data means disruption, and healthcare is one of our topics.
Hi everyone, my name is Lana Lanem. I'm the Managing Director of Hikma Ventures, which is the corporate venture capital arm of Hikma Pharmaceuticals. We established Hikma Ventures back in 2015 to act as the corporate VC fund for Hikma. We invest in digital health companies globally. We invest off of the balance sheet, and our ticket size is usually in the range of 3 to 5 million. We've invested as early as the seed stage and as late as the Series C. However, with that being said, I would say our sweet spots are usually in the Series A and Series B. And we established the fund because we think that digital health is becoming more of a necessity than a nice to have. So by combining our expertise with emerging digital health startups, we'll be able to extract a lot of synergies and basically provide digital therapeutics and digital health products that make the lives of patients much more easier.
Hi. First of all, thank everybody for being here today. My name is Christopher Gagliardi. I'm the Director of Investments for Sanofi Ventures. You've heard of Sanofi, global pharmaceutical top 10 group. We're the strategic venture capital arm of Sanofi, which means we really look to invest in companies that are either too early or too risky for the parent company to invest. We like to be that bridge between come back with more data and deal done. We invest like institutional funds. We focus primarily on seed Series A, but generally it's mostly pre-IND. We're not dogmatic. We've done Series Bs as well. I think if I was going to define us, it's really flexibility. We've done anything as far down as a $200,000 seed investment, and we reserve up to $15 million for a single allocation for a given round. We can talk a little bit more about sort of what it means to be strategic later on in this, but I typically like to start off some of these with my introduction when I'm giving this around. Out of everyone in this room, who here is interactive, like actually interactive, not in a situation like this, with a corporate venture capital group? By a show of hands, who's actually spoken to a CVC? Great. This is super helpful, so hopefully this will at least give us some frameworks to operate within. Appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Great. Well, I think it was a very nice segue, Chris and Lana, because Lana alluded to this a little bit about why. Chris talked about what does it mean to be a strategic. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that. I'll say a little bit about BI, and then we'll go down the line. So Boehringer Ingelheim Venture Fund, we obviously invest in therapeutics in order to feed our pipeline, so it's a very obvious, direct kind of strategy. For digital health, it is really a playground to understand the digital health world and to understand how pairing a technology with a medication or having a standalone technology as an intervention like a digital therapeutic could act as a new product. So we basically carved out a portion of our fund. It's $300 million fund, $60 million of that, of which is carved out for digital health, in in order to kind of understand what this means to us and sort of lay out the vision 5, 10, 20 years from now. So it's much longer term play. We have a lot of patience in terms of investing in both therapeutics and digital health. On the therapeutic side of things, we're interested in infectious diseases, we're interested in oncology, as well as regenerative medicines. Those are our 3 focus areas. And so you can see those things are very long-term strategies for us. And so, so I wanted to kind of move it down the line and maybe tell us a little bit about what is it, how do you connect your fund to the strategy of the organization? Maybe talk a little bit about pull-through. So what I mean by that is whenever we invest in a company, we try to connect that company to the R&D efforts, or I will do a lot of work on the commercial side in order to make sure that that organization, that company is sort of supported from a commercial standpoint so that it means something to us in the long term.
So for Illumina Venture, we actually don't invest directly out of company balance sheet. So Illumina Corporate has a genomics as the theme. You probably have heard of Illumina Accelerator, which is also a different legal entity from Illumina Ventures, but we all have Illumina as our anchor LP. So for Illumina Ventures, we don't invest in the areas that are directly Illumina strategic. For instance, sequencer itself, and also NGS-based cancer liquid biopsy, because Illumina has already very long time investment and partnership in those areas. So our investment is more to expand the genomic as a whole field. So in Life Science Tool, we will look at companies that are synergistic or complementary to genomic sequencer, upstream, downstream, or even expanded into spatial transcriptomics and proteomics. And in therapeutics, we like company that has a genomic angle, for instance, gene editing or synthetic biology to enable new modality discovery, or some new regulatory sequence from the genome, or next generation of AAV virus and delivery method for CRISPR-Cas9, etc. So they all somewhat connected to genomics, and somewhat in their research they will use sequencing, but not necessarily limited to that. And in clinical diagnostic, again, we like companies that use NGS to discover a biomarker, but also not limited there. So in terms of our connection with our corporate, we are actually more loosely connected. Our founding partner used to be the head of corporate investment and business development at Illumina, so he understands the strategy, and some of my colleagues, they also have maybe monthly communication with the corporate, and sometimes corporate will introduce some deal flow, but other than that, they don't decide on our investment decision.
Yeah, Chris, I love what you did there before, because in situations like this, I personally like to take at least one misconception out of the way. Oftentimes we find that since we invest early in ventures, that a lot of the founders see us as a party that typically comes in much later, which is not the case for us. And the reason that people see it that way is that they're sort of afraid of a tie between the corporate venture capital arm and the parent firm. Perhaps under the I would say, misconception that there is any bleeding of information and any competitive intelligence that ultimately sort of like takes away the competitive edge of the startup. Now, for us, we have basically designed our interaction with the parent firm in a way that we try to mitigate these things. And as I reckon most of you are founders, I would implore you to actually do diligence on your investors if you interact with them. Because this is a fundamental part, right? There is, in the corporate venture capital side, there's a big sliding scale between highly strategic and, let's say, less strategic. So what you were just saying, Illumina by design is perhaps a little bit more separated from the parent firm, whereas at Ventures we are sort of in the middle. So we invest balance sheet money, however we manage our investments from a separate yet wholly owned entity. So we do that we actually have completely separate employment contracts. Therefore we can sign separate CDAs, for example, confidentiality agreements, and therefore we have completely separate information systems. So we take board seats in our company because we're very early, so we like to provide services, we like to provide support, but we understand that, you know, when there is, for example, a commercial discussion ongoing between one of our investment companies and Merck, that could be at odds with one another, and it puts us in a conflicted position, because as a board member of a company, I'm supposed to do right by the company. However, I get my money from Merck, so I have a fiduciary obligation to get the best deal for Merck. So how we tackle that is that we make sure that we actually broker the connection and that we're not in the room at that point. And whenever there's any strategic discussion on going for a licensing deal or anything like that, we are not part of that. Now, that brings us to a very important point here, and that is, for example, rights within investment. Now, by design, we have chosen not to include any rights if we invest. We act like an institutional investor. Again, this is a very important question, especially in the early stages, to ask your investors. What does it mean if you have corporate VC money? Does that mean that you have to give up certain rights or not? Because if you do, well, there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's a choice that you make. Because if you do give up certain rights, that could accelerate what your plan is. However, it could also damage if that partner at some point doesn't exercise that option or doesn't exercise those rights. So again, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's really up to the two parties to work this out. Now, in ventures, as I said, we basically do this that we have a number of strategic areas in which we invest. So we are strategic investors for the initial investment, and any follow-on investment is purely financially driven because we want to support our companies and we want to be a reliable investor in this ecosystem. So for the last decade, we have followed on companies where, let's say, the strategic angle has played out. So it's done. It's not there anymore from the parent firm. We have a financial return. And that's how we actually manage from a financial perspective to really drive good returns for the parent firm and to be a sustainable and long-term investment partner in this ecosystem.
I guess with what Dad said, like we're very similar in terms of the way we're structured. We established, I would say we're financially driven in strategic areas of focus, and we're very much aligned with Hikma's strategic areas of focus. So they're pretty much chronic diseases, respiratory, oncology, mental health, and consumer health. So these are the areas where we actively look for investments, and we do that with a mindset like initially we actually established the fund number one to kind of know what's out there, because employees at Hikma, be it in R&D, BD, etc., they're very much they're in this mindset where Hikma is a pill manufacturer. So as the VC arm, we're kind of trying to increase or enhance that scope and basically raise awareness about certain areas like beyond the pill. So by investing in these companies, when we're investing, we usually use Hikma's resources, be it R&D, business development, sales and marketing. So they help us make the decision in terms of, is this something that we could potentially use? And when it comes to Hikma, given that we have a strong global presence and given our position in the Middle East and North Africa, we're actually the largest regional players there. I guess this is one of the reasons why we get a seat at the table at on the board of many of these global startups, because this is where we can actually add value when the company is ready to expand beyond, let's say the US or Europe. But the way we see things is that there is a complementary relationship between pharma and digital health companies. Because when it comes to pharma, we have a strong global presence, we have the sales infrastructure. However, what I would say we lack is knowing how to create and sell technology and at the same time this close direct relationship with the patient. And this is where the digital health startups can actually plug in that gap. In terms of rights and what we ask for, usually we do ask for a right of first refusal for the Middle East and North Africa, which is not limiting, because at the end of the day, if someone else comes along and that person would be a better partner, obviously we have the fiduciary duty, to your point, given that we take seats on the boards of these companies. But at the end of the day, this is what we ask for, and it should be a relationship that's healthy and that is complementary, and not we don't want to be regarded as vultures at the end of the day, and to limit the future of these digital health companies.
So I think the co-panel has made a lot of really nice points. I'll try and answer succinctly a fairly complex question. Sanofi Ventures. So the purpose, I would say, of Sanofi Ventures is really to access innovation ecosystems that the company really doesn't necessarily have the risk tolerance for. And so, from a broad view, we're an evergreen fund, and we are part of the parent company. We are not necessarily the world-renowned oncologists and immunologists that our colleagues are, but we have a company of 110,000 people who fit that bill. We will typically engage with companies, and R&D will help us with our assessment, ask some smart questions, because we are strategic, right? We need both strategic alignment and buy-in to the science that comes from our R&D. The head of R&D for Sanofi is on our investment committee, John Reed, which is a brilliant man. We're very happy to have him along for our investment making decisions. And so beyond that, I think it's just at a very, very high level, our focus tends to be on immunology, rare disease, neurology, oncology, and vaccines. And outside of the therapeutic reviews, we also focus on a lot on digital health and proactive digital health. Because we are strategic, we don't necessarily have cap table ownership requirements. We do like to be part of the narrative in important settings. So very much like my co-investor, my co-panelists, we very much like to take some kind of board presence, whether that's a full board seat or board observer seat, but for Sanofi Ventures, it's very important to be part of that. I think beyond that, for you as investors, the reason you should care about that is because when you take money from a corporate investor, it should be, in a lot of instances, asking yourself the question, what do you get in return? And this is one of the value propositions of Sanofi, which is if you're investing in you have expertise in your area, we like what you're doing. And so, in a lot of ways, not only do you get money, funds, capital from Sanofi Ventures, but you also have access to the 110,000 people that drive a $40 billion a year company. So what that means is what you do have access to is regulatory, medical, and scientific expertise that startups may not necessarily have value for. And I think the other piece that's important for you to ask yourself as entrepreneurs is when you are taking that money, what are you getting in exchange for it rather than just funds? It's expertise and things you may not necessarily have the resources for. That should check a box that not all other investors should be able to do. It's obviously one of the main benefits of corporate venture capital. We'll leave it there.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I briefly react to that?
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great point, and exactly the question that you're asking, why would I take this investment reward? I mean, if you're strapped for money, that's fine, perfectly reasonable argument. The part of the perception and part of the value add, I think, is very important. And luckily, we've seen the industry move on from the perception that you sell the company, essentially sell in the eyes of the rest of the ecosystem when you take on corporate venture capital money. That's no longer the case. The peers in the industry have all created checks and balances to make sure that the companies thrive and ultimately that there's no negative impact from taking on CVC money. So the digital side traditionally has been a little bit different in that. So we found that when in biopharma, CVC money and let's say the way that is designed is very accepted for the last decade already. On the digital side, it's been a little bit different. And so the merger of the two, when you go, for example, into healthcare technology, that's an interesting space where we see that these both worlds are blending. Now, luckily, again, opinions have moved on. So CVC money coming in early is not necessarily seen anymore as selling your company early to any highest bidder, but just as value add and actually creating additional synergies that could further the startup.
So I wanted to react to that. That was very nice segue to sort of what around the packaging of digital and sort of the idea where CVCs traditionally invest in therapeutics. What does a digital mean to that? And so I would say that if any of you startups or others have been selling your products into health systems, for example, health systems, what are they trying to do? Reduce costs, increase quality, value-based payments, all of that. And from our perspective, I can speak for me, I'd love to hear what my colleagues have to say. Digital health can play a better role in helping position our products in a more holistic way, such that it can drive value-based care. And since our customers are really our health systems, our providers, payers, we can play a better role in that discussion with a sort of more holistic package of services that actually drive care. So I'd love to hear maybe some reaction to that from the panelists, but also what is sort of exciting to you? What would you be looking for from startup companies besides their therapeutic area connection? What's keeping you up? Maybe start with Chris back the other way.
Sorry, question. Okay. So what are we looking at?
Well, yeah, what's exciting to you? What's keeping you up at night? And sort of like how do you package your products?
Oh God, keep I think the way that venture capital has traditionally functioned over the course of the last couple of decades has been really comparable. In San Francisco, we have these wonderful views, we're in these conferences, but I think in a lot of ways the value concentration of the patient markets we serve are changing as well as growth in places that our innovation ecosystems have traditionally served. And I think in a lot of ways, we in this room are going to have to change the way that we think about healthcare outside the US. And I think the way that we've typically thought about innovation is going to have to change slightly to serve some of these markets. And I'm very excited to see both how, as an investor for a global company, our thesis is going to have to change and shift, and how innovation is going to have to change and shift, whether that is access or whether that is different types of innovation or patient needs. I think that's one of the things that doesn't necessarily keep me up at night, but I would say this is something that's super exciting to me to see how we can move into that space. I would say maybe on this side of the problem equation, I think the bar is raising really high in a lot of different areas because of there's a lot of there's more companies than there are money in some areas, and so there's getting to be a lot of really nice investor perspective competition in particular areas, liver diseases, oncology, right? And so I would say in a lot of ways animal models haven't necessarily served clinical outcomes in some of these indications as well as perhaps as a scientist would have liked them to. And I think finding new ways to differentiate some of these really crowded areas is what I'm looking for, because I think there's a lot of really smart, thoughtful, innovative people around a lot of really interesting ideas, and they're not all going to win out. And I'm very excited to see some of these come across my transit. When I see new and innovative science in indications and areas that I haven't typically seen served, that's what gets me really excited about doing this job. So I come to work.
Yes, Debbie, what keeps me up at night is finding a way to partner with these companies. So we've been investing in all these innovative companies, but making sure that we're really extracting the synergies and supplementing, and basically creating a more differentiated product, bundling these technologies with the products that Hikma sells is something that we haven't done yet, and this is something that I would like Hikma to do. So it's kind of plugging in that gap between not just investing but also partnering. But interestingly enough, in terms of the organization, because you can't really shove things down people's throats, so it needs to kind of come from the segment or the department in question. So what we do is obviously we share what we're seeing out there, even companies that we don't end up investing in necessarily, with our R&D teams, sales and marketing, etc. And actually, we signed our R&D team, so we sent them an opportunity. The company called Aricor out of the UK. It's a reformulation technology company. We put them in touch with our R&D team a couple of years ago, and we just announced that we're co-developing a product for them in the reformulation space. So for us, that's a success, and this is something where we were able to add that tangible value to the organization beyond the financial one. So hopefully, we'd like to see more of these examples, and especially with the companies that we're actually investing in.
Yeah, so maybe taking a step back, and when you're asking, and you're like, what does a company or a project have to look like for you to get excited? I don't know if you guys know how, just to give you a glimpse on our side of the earth. At Ventures, we see about 2,500 to 3,000 unique investment opportunities every year. That's across 4 funds, right? So with my team, it's 3 people, we see about 700 globally. So it's a game of high throughput. We have a number of predefined areas, and we just quickly look at the deck. And sadly enough, like, we don't have bandwidth to look in depth at everything. So it's perhaps a bit cynical, right? We're looking for a quick kill. Out of those 700, about 200 of them we take, or 50, we take meetings, we take calls, and then the funnel starts to narrow drastically, right? So we sign maybe NDAs with about 50, we go on diligence about 20 to 15, and then we invest in about 3 to 4 companies every year. So it is really a game of numbers. There's less than 0.5%. So what we look for is retrospectively obvious opportunities with unique barriers to entry. That can be IP, it can be unique data, and of course the ability to serve a global market. Because the luxury as well as a corporate venture capital arm which we have is that we have global mandates. We invest globally, not just in a single geography. So we have the luxury to sort of like arbitrage and look for the best exciting opportunities out there rather than the best opportunities in your backyard. So that's what we look for. As a result, it keeps me up at night. Frankly speaking, we're based in Amsterdam and we see the coolest opportunities on the West Coast and in Boston. That's a long way away. Like, we would love to see Europe also come up and have some more global opportunities, because I spent my life in an airplane, and so does my team. So we hope that at this point, with, let's say, global technology levels rising, that we can maintain that level of innovation. Now, the other side which keeps me up is a piece of regulation that unfortunately was signed into action by the administration on CFIUS. As foreign investors, we have to go through a clearance level whenever we get patient-specific data, for example, in some of the investment opportunities. It's a bit of a nightmare. So as a result, we see quite a bit of funding power coming to Europe, and now we'll have to see whether European technology and innovation can keep up with that. So those are 2 things that keep us up at night.
For Illumina Ventures, I think what keeps us up at night is how we can make precision medicine approach more impactful. So we have seen a lot of revolutionary discovery in the oncology field, and people started to realize, actually even for neuroscience, for metabolic disease, and a lot of those large market and heterogeneous patient population, they need to use some of the precision medicine approach to help with, fine-tuning the patient population and identify more precise target, and also using the right modality for treatment. So we hope that we can pick some of the winner in this variety of different fields. That's why in our therapeutic portfolio, actually, we diversify quite a lot. We are disease area agnostics, we are modality agnostic, and we actually like to go into some new untapped area. Hopefully, through some of the success of these companies, they will lead the way for people to use precision medicine in a more broader way. And also for for other tools or even related to digital, we also want people to understand that genomics can be very impactful and the education can be come from many different areas. For instance, we invest in blockchain-based genomic data storage, also genetic counseling for healthcare services, and we even invest in microbiome-based energy company for industrial application, a variety of different ways. In a lot of times that people probably don't realize genomics can play a role in those areas, so we invest in these applications. And because we are independently managed fund with Illumina as our anchor LP, so we can tap into the Illumina resources if we want to, and also we can also independently help with the portfolio management and company development as much as we want. So actually in our previous investment, we are, I think, 60 to 70% of the deals, we are the lead investor and we take board seat active role. And when company has trouble, we are the same family. We do everything we need to help the company recruit talents, to do the business partnership, fundraising, and etc. For them to grow and then for them to exit. So far in our fund, actually, none of our investments are lost. So all the companies are alive throughout the past years, and a lot of them are doing very well. Some of the more troubled one, we try to help them to turn around with everything we can to help.
So I wanted to react to Lana's comments and then I'll also kind of curveball questions to the rest of the panelists. So one of the things you mentioned is about realizing, helping the organization to realize the sort of benefits and potential of digital health and the technologies that we invest in. So I think a lot, at least from my perspective, that drawing that bold line or the dotted line for the organization to see, hey, you know, this technology could be very well coupled with a pill in order to do this. Sometimes it's not realized that the technology, when you put that in front of the pharmaceutical side of the business, no one sees it. So you have to kind of help them see it, and a lot of our work internally is to kind of champion those efforts and to kind of help them get there. So I wanted to react to that. And then the comment by Edward about CFIUS, I wanted to ask the panel regarding barriers to entry and also the areas in which you're investing. Do you feel as if the areas that is there more money going into sort of later stage investments because people are now being more cautious, or are we all patient enough to do earlier seed investments and even build companies? I'd love to hear the panelists and their reactions around where is the money these days? Where are you focused in targeting?
This data might be a little old, but I think a lot of this data is Silicon Valley Bank and public official on this, I think. Some of the trends that we see, is that there's a lot of money in early stage because you get in on the ground floor, you get better returns, you can build it the way you want it. I think what you're seeing is fewer and fewer investors are putting in more and more dollars into early stage innovation. What does that mean? My assessment of that means that you are getting individuals with big pockets that have people that they trust, and they're giving them, making bigger bets on those individuals. If you have somebody with deep pockets, they know somebody who's created a number of different companies, and has been successful in the past. I think you're seeing bigger bets on individuals that have a track record. I think it makes it really challenging for first and second time entrepreneurs who have not made the connections with the third office and flagships. I think that's challenging. But I think there's definitely attention and excitement about early stage science, and I think a lot of that has to do with just the tremendous amount of innovation that has come out of university systems and just the early stage ecosystem, especially with some of the research tools. Illumina being just pioneering one of them, right? But a lot of the genomic sequencing and gene editing technologies have enabled. So I think there will continue to be appetite for that risk, especially as long as the exits don't turn into what they turned into in December of last year. But so far there's a bit of a rebound, and that's, I'm pretty sure we had a record high on the NASDAQ like 2 days ago. So
That's an excellent question. If I were to comment, I would say that there's a lot of money going into the Series B stage, where you've already had institutional investors, you've had a track record, a functional product most of the time. But what I've been noticing is an increase in bridge rounds. So these have become more and more popular over the past, I would say, couple of years. And as an existing investor in a company, that's planning to raise a Series B, for example, like sometimes you think, let's basically bridge, that gap to that next inflection point. We'd be better off than actually raising the Series B today. And I think, there's, even between the Series B and the Series C, so like I would say a lot of bridge rounds between the Series A and B and B and C. But yeah, if I were to choose one series, again, it's sometimes varies from region to region. What you call it, sometimes it's irrelevant whether it's an A, B, or C. To be honest, but generally speaking, I would say, yeah, like, once you have a functional product, there's a strong team in place that's being beefed up over the years. This is when money wouldn't potentially get poured in, then inside.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you guys said. And rather than regurgitating, I guess, what you guys have put so eloquently, maybe flipping it a little bit. When I started in this industry now, almost a decade ago, the pre-money valuations were pretty much like a quarter of what they are right now. And that is not because of fundamental differences in science or technical progress. It is just because right now we live in a seller's market. There's prolific financing out there, which is good, right? For you guys, especially for the founders among you. And for the investors among us, I mean, we have to sell it to somebody else, and if there's a lot of money there, that's also great. But if you take a step back and you ask yourself why that is, that's a cautionary tale. And with essentially interest rates as low as they are, big institutional investors like pension funds, endowments, and the likes they need to go risk on. So equities, that's why the stock markets are at the all-time high. Alternatives, that's why there's so much money in private equity. That's why there's so much money in venture capital. But that cannot last. There's only a finite amount of oxygen in this room. So when that is gone, when basically interest rates inevitably will rise, the allocations will go again into fixed income, again into bonds, again into real estate assets, and then unfortunately it will dry up. Maybe not as drastically as it did in 2012 following the 2008 crisis, but we will see a push. And if then the technical progress has not caught up with the promise of pre-money and inevitably a post-money of any investment round, that's when the going really gets tough. And again, we saw this in 2012 following the 2008 crisis, right? I mean, given the investment periods on 2008 vintage funds, which usually are 4 years, that's when the pain really hit. And at Ventures, because we had money at that point, we were cleaning up. But it is for the founders a cautionary tale, because right now, if you take on money and without any revenues in, let's say, digital health or healthcare technology, your post money is 250 million. That means if you look at the likes of Livongo and Progeny, which recently got listed, their valuations are about 10 to 15 times revenues. That means you've got to make up about 25 million in revenues to catch up to your valuation. Is your runway going to allow you to do that or not? If it doesn't, and in that time markets turn, you're in a heap of trouble. So all I'm saying here is, of course, everybody should do what they want. If you have a good product, ask for the price that you want. But it is very important to make sure that you don't build a mansion on quicksand. It's better to build a nice house on rock.
I fully echo Edward's point. Because of that reason, Illumina Ventures will continue to stick with our majority Series A investment. By Series A, it's not just a financing round term, but also validation stage. So if I break it down into different areas for life science tool, we like to see a company that already has a prototype and some alpha testing, and then hopefully with some beta testing already, being partnering out or started figuring out the partnership. And then for therapeutics, we are early investor, usually preclinical, and we like to see some animal data because biology a lot of times surprise you. So we are usually preclinical and pre-IND. And then for diagnostic, a lot of people didn't realize that diagnostic company needs a lot of money, and the exit is usually after commercial, after reimbursement. So we like to see company that at least have some tests that has been independently validated in validation set, and they have fixed their classifier, and then they have figured out somewhat what would be their commercial strategy to get reimbursement. And then for other various applications, including digital health, related genomics companies, we like to see they have a solid execution plan because it's more of a business model play. And then in terms of the financing, what I have seen increasing is convertible note related to what Lara said, bridge round, especially for life science tool company and diagnostic company, because they often actually nowadays do not meet their commercial target when as an inflection point for their next round. raise another bridge round or convertible note for that. Or some company take debts and their revenue doesn't, meet that target, and then they need a bridge round in order to meet the bank requirements. And then for therapeutic company, what I have seen more is more tranches within the same series or mega round, as Christopher just said. So these all speak to that actually companies sometimes didn't realize they need more money than they should, or they spend more money than they should. So I think the financial planning of the startup company is very important.
So in the remaining minutes, I wanted to invite some of the audience up. If you have some questions, stand up and ask so that the rest of us can hear, the rest of the audience can hear.
Sure. So I guess I have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to narrow that to one. Do you guys see your investment as a pre-M&A deal?
The question was, do we see our investments as a pre-M&A deal?
Yeah.
Like, do we make these investments as a bridge to an M&A?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that from our perspective, we always look at investing in order to possibly acquire. That doesn't mean that we necessarily acquire, but we always do consider that as an endpoint. Yes.
For our investment, especially life science tool and diagnostic company, because the public market are not as welcoming to them as the therapeutics company, although it's starting to open up a little bit. So majority of our life science tool or diagnostic company, we assume that they will one day exit through M&A.
So I think it's good to differentiate between two different types of value creation. The first one is therapeutics, which essentially is, in the crude sense of the word, running an asset along a regulatory pathway where, more likely than not, you're going to be acquired and the company is not going to commercialize their product themselves simply because they don't have the scale. In that case, yes, that's the mindset for those investments. On the other end of the spectrum, when we build companies, so for example, we actually look at technologies, when we look at companies built around that with commercial entities and everything, no, the end game is an IPO. And that's how we build the companies, standalone companies with standalone commercially viable solutions. And then if they get acquired along the way, that's great. But if we believe fundamentally that we build those companies to be acquired, then at some point when there's not enough acquirers, we will be pushed down in our potential acquisition rights. Whereas if we build those companies to be standalone, then we always have the best alternative to an M&A, which drives the price up.
I'm not sure. Was the question basically, once we invest, is it something that Hikma would acquire, or like is it just For us, the answer is no. I think we're a long way from that, given where we are as an organization. I'd like the answer to be yes down the line, but so far that's not the case.
Very briefly. So we'll invest in companies that can be companies. I don't want to invest in something that explicitly needs to be on the shopping list of Sanofi. But because we are strategic, the goal of our primary success metric isn't necessarily M&A, but it is business development deals that have been facilitated by our investments. Since our inception in 2012, we've had 5 of those, so we've been pretty successful to that. But because we are strategic, that answer will be different for everyone up here. But we invest in things that are pretty early and too risky for business development. So unless the win research is change, that's typically the goal, is to facilitate that kind of interaction.
Chris, you said there were some underserved areas. What are some of the underserved areas that you want to see more startups?
I can almost flip that on its head. I think there's areas where there's been a lot of really interesting biology, like NASH. There's been just a tremendous amount of great biology. There's more oncology science being done than I can count. But for example, right, you can look at this from a geographical perspective, right? You can take a look at countries with populations that are growing in affluence that yet to be served properly, right? But I think, is your question more of a therapeutic area question? So we're taking a look at therapeutic area questions, right? There are areas of, for example, immunology that sure, if you focus on therapeutics, you can say which percentage of the deals have been in this area, but like lupus and Sjogren's syndromes, I have not seen a tremendous amount of things in this area. I think those are two big areas where I haven't seen a ton of things. Outside of that, I think vaccines is really tough. But when you think about vaccines is tough for a number of reasons, right? Sanofi Pasteur is one of 6 companies that really invests in vaccines in a big way. But I mean, when you think of the public health benefit for cost of vaccines, it outweighs almost everything else available, right? Hopefully most of you have some kind of flu vaccines. When you think about what you get when you're born and the public health benefit of that, that's tremendous. And it doesn't see a tremendous amount of private sector investment because the exits aren't necessarily there, but I think it's certainly underserved, right? Respiratory syncytial virus is, there's a bunch of things in the clinic there, but still, I think innovation is needed. Outside of that, I'll have to give that a bit more thought, but I think there are areas that just don't necessarily fall inside of the 80 to 90% deals that typically come across on the street. Multiple sclerosis is another example. It tends to be very, very lucrative if you look at the individuals playing it. But it's, again, like, it's not a low-lying fruit. It's hard. And it's, typically we're trained to go for low-lying fruits, and it's not always the best or rewarding course of action. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
The one other area is anti-infectives.
What is it?
Anti-infectives.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Excellent point.
So I wanted to thank all of the panelists for being on the panel today, and everyone for asking great questions and listening. So thank you very much. And